If the expert guesses are correct, the Idaho legislature will wrap up 3 weeks from today. There are still all kinds of ideas floating around the State House, probably even more to come if we're being honest. But the only item that lawmakers have to take care of before they officially call it a session, budgets. Yes, the constitutional responsibility to get all the state agencies and departments funded. The early days of the 2024 session, we covered at length the new budgeting process that JFAC, the budgeting committee, began using this session. And long story short, the idea is to pass maintenance budgets, funding the basics, and then circling back to add new requests, supplementals, line, I should say. Now, lawmakers spoke out early in the session saying that they didn't like the process and they thought that crucial funding could fall through the cracks.
They're not what we had last year, which to me, that would be a maintenance budget. And then it's kind of being said that we'll go back and look at the line items and replacement issues.
So the concern from the critics of the new process is there's nothing binding lawmakers to circle back. Those base maintenance budgets can be all they technically pass, if Governor Little, of course, signs the bills. But legislative leaders, they shared their views on if the process is working at this point in the session. Democrats, Republicans see it differently. Democrats still worry about final budgets. Republicans, for now, seem to be satisfied.
We're doing all the trailer bills now to add to those maintenance budgets, which seems to be working fine. So I think a lot of the angst that people had about the process has eased.
It is yet to be determined whether we adequately fund the Department of Health and Welfare, education, whether 10,000 families who think their kids have money to go to college, in fact, get that money. A lot remains to be determined.
I will say that on the House and Senate floor, they are starting to really get through some of those budget bills. So we will circle back to all of this to see how it finishes up. Also, sticking with the State House, I wanted to circle back to a viewer question from earlier this week. Cindy in Nampa wrote to us saying, have our legislators fixed the presidential primary issue yet? And we got a lot of response from you about the caucuses that we'll talk about in a minute. But yes, they are working on the primary. Today on the Senate floor, lawmakers passed Senate Bill 1371. That would create a presidential primary election to be held on the third Tuesday in April of each presidential election year. It would also move the regular primary election date for the other offices to that same third Tuesday in May to the third Tuesday in April in even number years.
We will be confused about how to work through a session when we're thinking about running for election in April. It's hard enough as it is to stay focused on what we're doing here in the Senate. I do not want to be focused on a re-election campaign when we're headed for a primary in April.
I think it's been mentioned, maybe not the be-all, end-all, maybe not the perfect solution, but I am committed to seeing what we can do to have our citizens be able to vote for their president.
So you heard about some of the concerns, but again, it did pass. But if April isn't a good month and for some reason it gets stalled in the House, there is another option floating out there right now. Senate Pro Tem Chuck Winder introduced another option this morning in committee. He says that would align for a May primary date.